So last night, as you know, the President Cyril Ramaphosa addressed the nation on government's response to persistent public violence in parts of the country that saw looters making away with stolen goods and causing destruction to property. The address followed the announcement by the South African National Defence Force that it has commenced with pre-deployment process and procedures in line with the request for assistance received from the National Joint Operational and Intelligence Structure to assist law enforcement agencies in Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal. So to talk more about this, the role and the mandate of the SANDF, we are joined by Brigadier General Mafi Mgobozi, who is the SANDF's Director of Defence Corporate Communications. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much, Lee.
All right.
Good morning to all the listeners of SABC.
All right. Let us just get to a lot of explanations as to what things are going to look like. So, Brigadier, when are the SANDF going to be ready to be deployed? I know processes are underway to get that going, but when will we see them?
Lee, I must clarify this, that the deployment of the SANDF in various parts of KZN and Gauteng started yesterday. We are already having our soldiers on the ground on certain parts of the Gauteng and also in KZN.
All right, so they are there. Which areas specifically? Are you able to tell us where they have been deployed?
I can tell you just to mention 2 or 3 places in Durban, we are there, in Pietermaritzburg, we are there, and in Gauteng it would be difficult for me to say where we are at the present moment, but let me assure people that our soldiers are there in most of the areas now, and we are continuing rolling out the deployment in other areas.
In terms of the amount of soldiers that have been deployed to assist law enforcement agencies, a figure of around about 2,500 soldiers was released. Is that still the case? Has this been upped? What is the situation in terms of numbers?
And the numbers which were released yesterday, I saw it that is 2,500. But the Defence Force, we are doing everything in our power that we get more soldiers so that we can be able to deploy them in each area where we are needed. As you know, that is true that at the present moment, a lot of areas are volatile and we need to cover as much as possible areas.
Yeah. So, Brigadier, obviously there have been calls for the SANDF to be deployed since the protests actually began last week. What took so long?
These things has got processes. We don't just wake up and then we deploy. There are processes. First of all, which I must say that there must be a authorization letter so that the Defence Force can be deployed. This is according to the laws of the country. We cannot just wake up and deploy the SANDF. So far, even if we want to deploy SANDF, the certain department, in particular the police, they must have a requesting letter requesting the SANDF, and then it must go to the president, approve it, and then after that the deployment can commence. That's the thing. Those are the processes which are there, so that we won't see SANDF just being deployed. Find out if even the president don't know who deployed the SANDF, because he's the only one who must give the authorization to deploy the SANDF.
So when we look at the mandate now, we heard President Ramaphosa last night announcing now officially that this is the position that we're taking, but we did know that in the afternoon already, and as you say, they were already being deployed yesterday. But let's talk about your mandate. What is it?
In this deployment, our mandate is very clear. We are in support of the South African police. So far, what does this mean? This means the SANDF, we won't see us operating alone. It means we are going to be operating together with the SAPS, because the SAPS is the one who requested the support from us, SANDF. So far, the SANDF, our mandate here, we are going to be in support of the SAPS.
When you say support, I mean, you will take... But please, I mean, we all, I suppose, need to be educated on this. You will take basically direction from the SAPS and go where they tell you that they need you to assist them?
Lee, if someone asks assistance, Defence Force, we are the SAPS, as this operation is going to be intelligence-driven operation. It means the SAPS, we are the one who's going to lead the operation as we just supported them. Even in our deployment, is the SAPS who are supposed to know the hotspot through their intelligence, which they have gathered that we need to be deployed in certain area and certain area.
And that's where criticism comes in, because there has been a lot of criticism labelled against the lack of response from the SANDF and the SAPS. I know it's hard for you to respond on behalf of the SAPS, but many saying that this intelligence, this information should have already been with you guys as to where the deployment should have happened to avoid the scenes that unraveled yesterday in the country. How do you respond to this criticism?
Yes, I can understand people, the country is burning. Country is burning, but the only thing which I can say is that all the deployment which we are doing, it must be intelligence-driven, so that we can prevent even other things to happen. And we know that some of things have happened in our country now. They have banned places, but we need intelligence so that we can be able to deploy our troops where we're supposed to deploy them, not to just to go to the places because people is having feelings. When it comes to operation, we don't use feelings. We must have information which we must use so that we can be able to quell the situation.
Yeah, and I mean, we understand what you're saying in terms of you don't use feelings, it's got to be on information. But, you know, one of the worries, I imagine, from a lot of South Africans as well is just memories of what happened during the lockdown, and particularly last year when we were in level 5. And, I mean, we saw a 37-year-old man actually dying. And this, of course, was all due to things that went horribly wrong with the SANDF and just a very unfortunate situation. And that, of course, I'm talking about Collins Khosa. I don't want to bring up that case, but I want to know that going forward, these kind of situations will be avoided, and how.
Our soldiers have been taught before we deploy, we have those mobilization, we mobilize them and then we educate them through the rules of engagement, all of those things. That was one of the unfortunate incidents, but as our soldiers are back on the street, I can assure the South Africans that our soldiers will behave. But one thing which I must again say that even the community, please, we beg you, don't provoke our members when they are on the street. There are people even them, but we won't tolerate any ill-discipline within the SANDF during this deployment.
Yeah, and then just a lot of people asking, you know, we're saying, and you have confirmed that they have already been deployed, and yet nobody's really seen them, that they haven't actually seen any of the SANDF on the ground. So people are worrying, saying, where are they? Why have we not seen them if they are there?
Lee, I can tell you that people from different areas, they have sent me photos which is saying they have seen the SANDF and thank us that at last we have arrived. People, I can say that people, they must be patient. We are rolling out this deployment as soon as possible. In most areas, people, the SANDF will be visible.
All right, let's leave it there. Thanks very much for talking to us. Brigadier General Mafi Mgobozi is the Director of Defence Corporate Communication at the SANDF, talking to us about the deployment of the SANDF to assist with the criminals who looted and stole during the unrest in Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal, and of course confirming that the SANDF have already been deployed to those hotspot areas. All right, the time.